I am in Springfield, Illinois at the Illinois State Military Museum. I've been wanting to come here for quite a while because from what I've heard, they have some pretty unique stuff in here. The past few years it's been totally changed. They did like a full World War I museum from 2014 to 2018, but now this 2019 I think it's been restored to its original condition, so we're gonna go check this out. The museum is housed inside the castle-like Camp Lincoln Commissary building. Camp Lincoln was a National Guard outpost here in Springfield. This building served as the headquarters, barracks, examination center, and hospital for the camp. There are some military vehicles outside, like this classic Huey from the Vietnam era. This is an M47 Patton tank. These were used from the 50s to the 70s. And this is a Cobra, which was used in Vietnam. The sign says that it's technically still in service, but it does look like it has a little damage on the nose. Really cool relic nonetheless. This is a Duster anti-aircraft gun. Here's an old howitzer. This is a memorial to the fallen National Guardsmen of Illinois. Now let's head inside the museum, which is on the National Register of Historic Places. Starting off with a huge disappointment, General Santa Anna's leg is off display for the time being. This museum does have the Mexican General and President Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna's wooden prosthetic leg. Santa Anna was a general who invaded the Alamo but was defeated at San Jacinto, and his leg was blown off by a French cannon in 1838, which is why he had to get a wooden prosthetic leg. Later during the Mexican-American War, the 4th Illinois Infantry surprise attacked him while he was eating lunch, and he forgot his leg. So the Illinois National Guard got a hold of it. As it's a very old wooden artifact, the light of being on display can damage it, and it has been on display for the past 20 years. So they just put it in dark storage for rehabilitation, and it's gonna be in there for 5 years. So I'll plan to return here around 2024 to see Santa Anna's leg. While that's certainly a letdown, there is still a lot of cool stuff here, like this large diorama map of the treacherous Andersonville prison. Here are common army uniforms and equipment carried by men in Europe during World War II. These are items used by American soldiers in Europe during World War II, such as a gas mask. World War II did see the widespread use of chemical weapons like mustard gas, chlorine, and phosgene, so here is an original gas mask used to protect against such dastardly weapons. Here's a mannequin D-Day trooper landing on a mine-riddled Omaha beach against heavy fire. Upstairs is a bust of Major General Milton Foreman, Commander-in-Chief of the Illinois National Guard during World War I, as well as a poster to join the Red Star Animal Relief Organization to help war animals like horses. Here's some World War I era American personal gear, including a canteen, a trench knife, and a souvenir belt. That is the sash of Minnie the dog. She was picked up in France by the 129th Infantry during the war and was adopted as their mascot. She took part in the military ceremonies and parades in Luxembourg when they were stationed there, and they took her back to America where she lived out the rest of her days in Chicago. This is the taxidermied body of Goldberg the dog. He was picked up as a Chicago stray and was adopted as the mascot of the 122nd Field Infantry and was smuggled overseas. He was around the front lines at Saint-Mihiel and was also present at Verdun, Meuse-Argonne, and Luxembourg. He was gassed and injured during the Meuse-Argonne offensive and earned a wound stripe. Then he went back to Chicago and was honorably discharged after the war. Here is some Australian equipment from World War I. This is the death mask of General George Bell Jr. of the Spanish-American War and World War I. This is a Lewis automatic rifle. This was the first machine gun fired from an airplane, first used during a Wright Flyer test. This rifle was adopted by the Navy and Marines and was extensively used by the British during World War I. This is some heavy-duty Sappenpanzer. It weighed over 24 pounds, and it was designed to protect from shrapnel and small arms fire. I'm not sure how well that worked out. These are typical weapons used by the American Expeditionary Forces, including the Winchester bolt-action rifle, the Springfield bolt-action rifle, as well as the Colt pistol and revolver. These are Allied weapons used by the British and French, like the Lee Enfield, the Lebel, and revolvers. It appears an Allied trooper is just charging this trench in the Argonne. Not sure of his chances here. Going back in time a little bit, this is a model of Fort Dearborn, the fort that was built near the mouth of the Chicago River in what is now the city of Chicago, right where the DeSable Bridge is now. This shows the fort in July of 1812, shortly before most of the occupants evacuated to Fort Wayne. Later during the move, they were ambushed by some Potawatomi who were allied with the British, and 40 of them were killed. These are mannequins of the United States Infantry regulars from the War of 1812, showing what they would have worn. This is a painting of Abraham Lincoln as a soldier in the 1832 Black Hawk War, which took place in northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin. The young Mr. Lincoln from the small village of New Salem, Illinois, was elected as the captain of his company, but they never saw combat. And this is a mannequin figure of Abraham Lincoln as an Illinois militiaman. The Black Hawk War occurred after Chief Black Hawk, leading a group of Native American tribes, crossed into Illinois from the Iowa Indian Territory in order to resettle their tribal lands, with their full intentions of doing it peacefully. However, they were attacked and swiftly defeated by the Illinois militias and the US military. This is the dress armor and helmet of a Tulancingo Cuirassier of the Mexican-American War. They were an elite Mexican cavalry unit. Now into the Civil War exhibit. Here's a mannequin of a Union soldier. Illinois did produce over 255,000 servicemen in the war, which was led by an Illinoisian. Some artifacts including a photo of Benjamin Grierson, as well as his promotion letter. There's also a photo of William Blackburn, who was killed at Vicksburg, and an officer's hat insignia. This is a 12-pounder mountain howitzer. These were mostly used in the Western Theater. This is a war log, the stump of a tree that was between the Union and Confederate lines at Chickamauga, and it clearly has lots of war damage with shrapnel and bullets lodged inside from the battle. These are always some of the most interesting and revealing relics from battlefields. The next relic after Santa Anna's missing leg is probably the most unique in the whole museum. The sharpshooting board used by President Abraham Lincoln on the White House lawn on August 18, 1863. This is a Spencer rifle of the exact model that Lincoln would have used to shoot with during the demonstration. And this is the board Lincoln shot at, showing the ballistic accuracy of the commander-in-chief. He fired 7 shots from 40 yards away and managed to hit every single one on this little piece of board, and even had its fortifications attacked in 1864. Lincoln stayed in the city during these times, and even though he made a big tall target, he probably would have been good help in the defense of the city if necessary. That's a one-of-a-kind artifact. Really interesting story there. This is the regimental flag of the 114th Infantry Regiment of Illinois Volunteers, which was present at Vicksburg, Bryce's Crossroads, and Nashville. And this is a Confederate battle flag captured by the 64th Illinois during the Battle of Atlanta. This company also retrieved the field glasses and papers of Union General James B. McPherson, the commander of the Army of Tennessee who had been killed earlier in the day. Here are some Civil War instruments, including a snare drum that was recovered after Shiloh, and the bugle used to sound the charge at Hatchie Bridge, Mississippi on October 5th, 1862. There's the saddle used by Dr. J.F. Snyder of the 4th Confederate Cavalry. He used this one at Wilson's Creek, Pea Ridge, and Corinth. And there's a small carbine, pistol, and a Union cap. Here's a variety of Union weapons from the Civil War. That's General John A. Logan's 1861 Enfield musket, the one he used at First Bull Run. And there are Confederate weapons on this side. This is a mannequin with a uniform of the 29th U.S. Colored Infantry. This is an 1883 Gatling gun. The first machine gun was designed by Richard Gatling of Indianapolis, who was inspired during the first days of the war in Indianapolis when he noticed huge streams of men leaving for battle and huge streams of wounded men coming back. This led him to successfully develop the Gatling gun, and it was never really used or officially purchased by the US during the Civil War, but it did become more popular later on. This one was used by the Illinois National Guard around the turn of the century. Here are artifacts of the Spanish-American War. Some National Guardsmen uniforms from around World War I. This is a display on Johan Anderson, a Finnish immigrant who served in the National Guard on the Mexican border during the Pancho Villa ordeal and was deployed to France during World War I. He was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his service in the Bois de Forges attack. Here's a trench headquarters scene. Clearly it was very dark and dreary on the Western Front. Here are some relics of the Allied powers. Always enjoy seeing these graffitied helmets. Here's a trench scene with some doughboys addressing their map. That does not look like a good time. While more than 350,000 African Americans served during the Great War, units were still segregated, and only the ones that were put with the French actually had the opportunity to equally fight and serve. Some German relics of the Great War. Planes were a new thing in World War I, and here are some fabric remnants from World War I era planes. We now enter World War II about 22 years later. Here are some Japanese weapons. This tableau shows some Americans fighting in the Pacific Islands. And here's a scene on the home front with a vintage radio set and some other details. Those are some German artifacts. Here are some weapons used by the US forces during World War II. These guys are going through and checking a house in Europe. It was protocol to throw a grenade in first to kill any Germans laying in wait or set off booby traps. However, they often killed civilians. Here's a Chinese or North Korean soldier from the Korean War, perhaps dressed in that coat for the horrid conditions of the Battle of Chosin. Here's an American Vietnam War uniform and war items. Some more relics of the Vietnam War recovered by veterans, including an AK-47 and some currency. And now we enter more modern times, with an American uniform from the Gulf War era. Here are some Persian Gulf War items, including an M60 machine gun and a rocket launcher. Some Iraqi items captured during the Gulf War. That's a uniform of the 126th Bombardment Wing, an air unit of the Illinois National Guard, created during the Korean War in 1950, and they were stationed in Europe to support NATO forces. Some War on Terror relics, including a shirt, rifles, and some relics recovered from Afghanistan. Here's the uniform of a soldier of the Illinois Army National Guard from Iraq and Afghanistan. This windshield with a huge gunshot in it was part of an ambushed Humvee firefight in Iraq in 2005. Sergeant Kennedy was sitting directly behind this glass, and the glass did probably save his life. Despite Santa Anna's leg being absent, this is a really great and overlooked Springfield museum that I'd highly recommend. Please check out my other Springfield videos, and thanks for watching.